Usually, when we think about a children's story, there's this underlying expectation of simplicity. We anticipate a perfectly paved road.
Well, absolutely. We crave that kind of binary structure.
Right. There's a clearly defined good guy, an easily identifiable bad guy, and a straightforward moral just waiting at the end of the journey.
Yeah, and the narrator just points to the lesson and says, there it is.
Exactly.
We really like our narratives to be easily categorized, comfortably digestible, and just neatly resolved, especially when they're aimed at shaping the minds of the younger generation. It feels safe, I guess, to present the world as a place of absolute rules.
It does. But then you step into the world of our source material today, which is a seemingly straightforward narrative about a dragon school, and suddenly that perfectly paved road takes a really sharp, deeply subversive turn.
A very sharp turn, yeah.
We are looking at a text that basically acts as a complex diagnostic landscape of societal roles. So today we have a single fascinating source to explore for this deep dive. It's a transcript of a children's story titled Zog.
Right, and the premise is incredibly deceptive in its innocence.
It really is. We are placed in a school run by Madame Dragon many moons ago, and her curriculum is designed to teach young dragons all the things that dragons supposedly need to know to function in their society.
Right, the absolute basics of being a terrifying beast.
Yeah, and our protagonist is Zog. He is the biggest dragon in the school, and he's the absolute keenest pupil by far. His driving motivation, like his entire reason for waking up in the morning, is completely single-minded.
He wants that prize.
He does. He tries his hardest every single day to win a coveted prize, which is a golden star.
And, the pursuit of that star is exactly why we're dedicating our deep dive to this text today, because the goal of our analysis isn't to simply recount a whimsical tale about a mythical creature.
No, not at all.
Our mission is to explore how this narrative acts as an absolute masterclass in dismantling traditional societal expectations.
I mean, it goes deep.
It really does. We are going to examine the severe physical toll of rigid education systems, dissect the psychological control mechanisms embedded in the arbitrary milestones we chase, and ultimately look at the profound power of alternative dispute resolution.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we have to start by looking at the sheer, unrelenting grind Zog subjects himself to in order to acquire this star.
The hustle is real for him.
Oh, it's brutal. Instead of just walking through his education year by year, we really need to focus on the escalating pattern of physical trauma that accompanies his ambition. The narrative establishes a brutal correlation between institutional success and personal degradation.
Right. And the pedagogical method at play here is it's entirely uniform and intentionally devoid of a safety net.
Madame Dragon is old school.
Very. She utilizes a hyper-traditional sage-on-the-stage model of teaching.
Yeah.
I mean, her approach is to deliver a singular, brief demonstration and then immediately demand independent mastery from her students.
Which just transfers all the risk entirely onto their shoulders.
Exactly.
Let's look at how that plays out mechanically. So in the first year, they are learning how to fly. Madame Dragon shows them the basics and just sends them off to practice.
Good luck, kids.
Right. And Zog, who is driven by that desperate need for the golden star, pushes himself to the absolute limit. He's soaring, swooping, flying fast and free, and, well, the inevitable happens.
He crashes
Violently into a tree. But then a mysterious little girl happens to be nearby. She offers him a pink sticky plaster for his head, and he just flies off. The text actually describes his plaster gleaming as he goes zigzagging through the blue.
It's such a striking image. But notice how the curriculum doesn't adjust to his failure.
No, it just gets more dangerous. By the second year, the task is roaring. He pushes his vocal cords for hours until his throat is entirely hoarse.
And the girl returns?
She does, and she gives him a soothing peppermint, and he's right back at it. Then by the third year, the instruction is breathing fire. And Zog tries so intensely to meet the standard that he literally sets his own wingtip alight.
Which is terrifying.
Right.
And the girl provides a stretchy bandage.
Yeah. I have to pause here because looking at the cycle, I instantly picture a modern tech startup operating under that notorious move fast and break things philosophy.
Oh, totally.
Except in this scenario, the things being broken are the employees themselves. Zog is the hyper-competitive student staying up for 4 days straight on caffeine, or, the burned-out corporate climber sacrificing their physical health for a promotion.
He's literally setting himself on fire for the equivalent of an A+.
Exactly. But I do want to push back on the framing of Madame Dragon for a moment.
Oh, okay.
Because as a reader, it's super easy to label her a negligent teacher for leaving young, inexperienced dragons to practice incredibly dangerous maneuvers entirely on their own until they sustain serious injuries.
Right, it looks like child endangerment.
Yeah. But is it possible this is just the tough, harsh reality of learning to be an apex predator? I mean, if your role in society is to be a fearsome, fire-breathing beast, maybe a sink-or-swim mentality is the only way to forge that kind of resilience. Maybe the burns and bumps are an essential part of the curriculum.
What's fascinating here is that Madame Dragon's pedagogy isn't necessarily malicious. It simply lacks imagination.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, it relies entirely on historical precedent. This is how dragons have always learned, so this is how she teaches. But the text provides a deliberate counterweight to her harsh, solitary struggle. And that's the recurring interventions of the little girl.
The plaster, the peppermint, the bandage.
Exactly. These aren't just cute narrative details. They represent a sophisticated system of localized community care. In an environment that basically demands suffering for success, this girl introduces empathy and mutual aid.
I'd ask you, listening to this right now, to think about your own professional or academic experiences. Have you ever worked under a manager or a professor with Madame Dragon's exact mentality?
Where the expectation was that you simply figure it out no matter the personal cost.
Right. And in those environments, survival rarely comes from the institution itself. It usually comes from the coworker who quietly helps you fix a massive error before the boss sees it.
Or the classmate who shares their notes when you're completely overwhelmed.
Exactly. The institution breaks Zog down, but that localized community care is the only mechanism that allows him to literally get back in the sky and continue zigzagging through the blue.
It's a parallel support system operating entirely under the radar of the formal curriculum.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because as we move into the 4th year of this education, the curriculum takes a significant and revealing turn.
A huge pivot.
We shift away from the mastery of personal physical skills and move directly into enforcing a rigid societal expectation. Madame Dragon informs the class that by the time they are grown, they are expected to capture hundreds of princesses.
So we have transitioned from learning how to operate a dragon's body to learning the predetermined societal role of a dragon within the broader cultural ecosystem.
Which is a lot heavier.
Yeah, the institution is now dictating his relationship with the outside world.
And this is the moment Zog hits a wall. Despite his relentless ambition, he fails repeatedly at capturing a princess. He physically cannot execute this predatory mandate.
It's just not in his nature.
No. And he finally despairs, weeping because he believes he will never win a golden star. But this is when the mysterious girl appears again.
Only this time, she reveals her identity.
Right. She is Princess Pearl.
Yeah.
And she steps forward and actually volunteers to be captured. Zog brings her back to the school, Madame Dragon is thrilled, and Zog finally receives his golden star.
It's brilliant.
He essentially hacked the metric. He didn't achieve the goal through his own predatory dominance. He found a loophole based entirely on consent.
And the introduction of consent completely neutralizes the predator-prey dynamic that Madame Dragon's curriculum relies upon.
Wow, yeah.
By volunteering, Pearl strips the action of its violence, but the truly subversive mechanic at play happens after she arrives at the school.
Because she doesn't act like a hostage.
Not at all. She doesn't adopt the behavioral expectations of a captive. The text explicitly notes that she immediately begins taking the dragon's temperatures and nursing them when they fall ill or get injured.
She goes straight to work. Madame Dragon thinks she has secured a traditional hostage to validate her curriculum, but Pearl has actually just smuggled an entirely functional healthcare system into the school.
Exactly. By building a parallel system of care inside a hyper-competitive, high-casualty environment, Pearl begins to actively neutralize the authority of the original system.
Because she's providing something they actually need.
She is demonstrating a higher utility. I mean, Madame Dragon teaches them how to inflict and endure damage, but Pearl teaches them how to recover from it. It's a quiet structural revolution happening right under the teacher's nose.
And that sets up a massive collision course for their final year of education. Because year 5 is when the dragons learn to fight.
The stakes get even higher.
Oh yeah. Madame Dragon announces the arrival of a real live knight, Sir Gadabout the Great, who rides in waving his trusty sword, declaring he has come to rescue Princess Pearl.
It's the classic fantasy setup.
The tropes are perfectly aligned. Zog steps forward, breathes fire, and aggressively claims ownership, shouting, "She's mine!" The rest of the dragons crowd around to watch the spectacle.
Because the societal expectations of all three archetypes are at their absolute peak right here. The knight must rescue, The dragon must fight, and the princess must be fought over.
They're all playing their parts.
Right, the script of their society demands a violent climax.
But right before they clash, Princess Pearl steps between them and brings the entire narrative to a screeching halt. She calls them silly chumps.
Which is such a great line.
It is, and her exact phrasing here is critical to the underlying philosophy of the story. She tells them, the world's already far too full of cuts and burns and bumps.
She just names the trauma out loud.
Yes. She flatly refuses to be rescued, stating she has no intention of returning to prancing around the palace in a silly, frilly dress. Instead, she declares her true ambition. She wants to be a doctor who travels, listens to people's chests, and provides care.
It is a breathtaking deployment of alternative dispute resolution.
I love that you call it that.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
She doesn't just stop a physical fight.
Yeah.
She completely reframes the nature of the conflict. The knight and the dragon believe they have mutually exclusive goals based on possessing her.
Right.
But Pearl introduces a third option that renders their previous goals entirely irrelevant.
Okay, I have to jump in and play devil's advocate regarding this narrative arc, because from a purely structural standpoint, this feels like a massive letdown.
You think so?
Well, look at it. We have spent 5 distinct chapters watching Zog endure severe trauma, training his whole life for this specific kind of confrontation. The knight has ridden in to fulfill his destiny. The other dragons are gathered around waiting for the main event.
And someone just unplugs the machine?
Exactly. Isn't that a frustrating subversion for an audience expecting a fireworks show?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the story isn't failing to deliver a climax. It is masterfully deconstructing the hero's journey itself.
Okay, say more about that.
We are deeply conditioned by our culture to believe that the apex of any meaningful story must be violent-like, a definitive physical battle between opposing forces. But this text argues that the bravest act isn't engaging in combat.
It's opting out.
Exactly. The true climax is Pearl possessing the courage to explicitly reject her predetermined societal role and challenging others to do the same.
She refuses the silly frilly dress, and she refuses to let them play their assigned roles of aggressor and savior.
Furthermore, this isn't a sudden twist. Her previous quiet interventions, the pink plaster, the soothing peppermint, the stretchy bandage, those were meticulous foreshadowing for this exact thesis.
Oh, wow.
For years, she has been quietly demonstrating that the world requires healing, not further conflict. So her declaration in front of the knight and the dragons is simply the vocal culmination of everything she had been practicing in the margins.
Which triggers an immediate, massive ripple effect. We see the synthesis of this new philosophy play out in real time. Because once one person firmly rejects the status quo, it instantly breaks the spell of societal expectation for everyone else around them.
It gives them permission to change.
Exactly. Sir Gadabout, who literally just seconds ago was ready to hack a dragon to pieces, drops his entire aggressive persona. He takes off his helmet and agrees with Pearl, stating he'd rather wear a nice twisty stethoscope.
And Pearl agrees to train him in medicine. But she points out a logistical flaw. They can't both fit on his horse to travel the land.
Right. And this is where the raw materials of their traditional training are fundamentally repurposed. So what does this all mean for our protagonist? Zog steps up and volunteers to be their flying ambulance. When you step back and look at the mechanics of this new ecosystem, the interlocking of their skills is just brilliant.
It really is seamless.
Zog still gets to utilize his year 1 passion, which is flying, but now it has profound purpose. He isn't just exhausting himself for a sticker, he's facilitating life-saving transport.
And Gadabout still gets to fulfill his knightly desire to travel the realm and serve the people.
But he'll be doing it by repairing bodies instead of breaking them. And Pearl finally occupies the role of the medical expert she always naturally was. They didn't discard their capabilities, they decoupled them from the societal expectation of violence.
And we must also examine the institutional response to this radical departure.
Oh, Madam Dragon.
Right. How does the rigid establishment, represented by Madame Dragon, react to her star pupil abandoning his role to form a commune with the enemy knight and an escaped hostage?
I mean, in most bureaucratic structures, this would be classified as an act of severe rebellion. It would be met with immediate punishment or excommunication.
You would completely expect her to strip him of his golden star and banish him.
Yes.
But instead, Madame Dragon's reaction is deeply instructive. She yells, "Bravo!"
She actually cheers for them.
She publicly validates their choice, calling it an excellent career. She even agrees to keep Gadabout's abandoned horse as a pupil's pet, promising to feed it lots of hay. This raises an important question about institutional flexibility. Why does she capitulate so joyfully?
It's because she recognizes the undeniable superiority of the new system they've proposed. Madame Dragon isn't stupid. She just lacked an alternative model.
That's exactly it.
When presented with a flying medical team, the utility of that cooperative solution instantly outshines the utility of teaching dragons to crash into trees and burn their own wings. She allows her rigid system to flex.
Which is rare for institutions.
It is. It's a powerful commentary on how leadership can and should respond to paradigm shifts. Institutions survive not by fighting superior innovations, but by adopting the horse and making room for the twisty stethoscope.
It proves that the metrics we use to define success don't have to remain static. The Golden Star was a tool of control, but Zog ultimately outgrew the need for it by finding intrinsic value in his work.
We have journeyed through an incredibly dense sociological landscape today. I mean, we started in a brutal, hyper-traditional environment where a student was literally destroying his own vocal cords and setting himself on fire just to appease an arbitrary metric of approval.
A gleaming pink plaster of burnout.
Yeah, and we watched the mechanics of localized empathy quietly dismantle that rigid structure, leading to a cooperative, highly specialized flying doctor team supported by the very institution they evolved beyond.
It's a vital reminder that the roles handed to us by society are templates, not life sentences. The bravery lies in identifying which parts of the template serve us and which parts are just causing unnecessary cuts and burns.
I want to turn this directly to you, the listener, as we wrap up, because it's incredibly easy to analyze a story about mythical creatures and distance ourselves from the underlying mechanics. But look closely at the architecture of your own daily life.
It's a tough mirror to look into.
It really is. Are you currently exhausting yourself, losing your voice, or metaphorically setting yourself on fire for a metric that someone else designed? Are you blindly chasing a golden star in a corporate, academic, or social system that relies on your continuous burnout to function?
Right. Are you playing a designated role?
The fierce, unyielding executive, the perfectly accommodating partner, the aggressively competitive colleague simply because that is the script you were handed when you walked in the door.
Recognizing that the rules of engagement are actively harming you is the first and often most difficult step toward alternative dispute resolution in your own life.
Putting down the sword doesn't mean you lose the fight. It often just means you finally realized you're in the wrong arena. Before you go, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over.
Oh, this is a good one.
Zog, Pearl, and Gadabout have successfully hacked their immediate environment. They formed this beautiful, purpose-driven flying ambulance, but now they're heading out into the wider world to practice their medicine.
Out of the school and into reality.
Right. And that wider world is presumably still populated by thousands of traditional sword-waving knights and fierce princess-capturing dragons who haven't unlearned their societal programming yet. What happens to this newly formed ecosystem when the healed become the healers?
It's a dangerous world out there.
How does a cooperative team of medics operate and survive in a broader society that is still deeply, stubbornly committed to creating its own cuts, burns, and bumps?
Navigating a healed identity in an unhealed world. That is where the real work begins.
It really is. Until next time, keep questioning the curriculum and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.